Thank you for tuning in to the World Builders Anvil, Season 2, Episode 24, Mending the Campaign. Because Jeff broke it.
Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge.
Break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builders Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the muck of Java and build. Healer, as always, my name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And constantly cleaning up Jeff's messes, I am Michael Miller.
Yes, as Michael mentioned, we broke the campaign last time, which is the best way I think
by
to start
we, you
campaigns.
mean you.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you actually want a story that people are interested in, you kind of have to break the normality before you start the story. You know, I guess you could be going over some kind of French character-driven thing or whatever, where they talk over a piece of chocolate and a cigarette for 42 hours. But I'm sorry, French. You make actually much better movies than I just stereotyped you as.
For half a second, I thought you said fringe. And I was like, he said fringe, but it sounded like French. So I was going to make a joke like, hey, what's wrong with the French characters? And then I realized you actually were talking about French characters.
Yeah.
not fringe characters.
Not fringe. They're
but
probably fringe, you know, in the land of popcorn mowing action movies. But.
Yes, I do like them both, though, French and fringe.
Yeah,
and the French do have a lot of good fringe characters in fringe movies.
They can do fringe characters in any movie. It works. But like Steve Buscemi would just be like a normal leading man.
Yes. Yes, he would.
That's the thing we know is we've been watching a lot of BritBox, and they have normal looking people on their shows. It's interesting. There's like actual like people who look like humans, not just like pitch perfect models. But yeah. Back to
Pitch Perfect as in the movie Pitch Perfect.
Not so much, but you know, essentially it's like the leading characters can be any shape or size, or color, and it seems to be fine. So
anyway, back to our story.
So we're back to our campaign. We broke it. Now we need the path of resolution. Ergo, we're mending the story. So really, the whole point of every story that you're going to run is you're going to break something and then you're going to fix it, and that's just it. That's the most basic story structure there is. But now on the path to resolution, there are a few things. We've not defined any setbacks yet. Now, you're probably going to have more than one setback in a story, but main plot-wise, you probably have one or two, maybe one per act. It depends on how you want to structure it, but you have to have one. I like one post-climax because it's like, okay, we have this bright idea, but now let's slap the characters around to give us a reason to go on for another act. So, you know, we come to the climax where Bob has gained the thing that will allow him to fix the Bident, and Peaceful Pete has learned that Bob is his cousin. Fix it.
Well, it's not use it.
He's not broken.
It's not broken.
Change it. He's trying to change it.
He's trying to basically program it so that it works the way.
Reprogram it.
Yeah.
He's got new AI he has to install.
And again, you want him to. I want to say in the last episode that my whole bit was that on his journey he would not have it with him, but you also talked about him.
Oh no, and I agree with you. He does not have it with him. He's had to go gain something. Now he has this thing that he can change it. He has to get back to it. So he's now on the wrong island.
Like a secondary artifact or a ritual.
A ritual, secondary artifact, something that he needs that he can now go back. He's gained something from the forger, not the forager or the forger, but the forager.
Forager. He's looking for
all
plants.
Sound the same, don't they? Not someone who forages, not someone who writes fake signatures, but someone who actually created the item. He's got the thing to change it.
And also not to be confused with somebody who looks for plants.
Yes.
In the woods.
Or who writes fake signatures.
Which Bob probably does.
Which Bob does all of those things. We just add a character trait there.
Well, it's funny. Like
so-
Sarah, there's a vegan place around the corner from us that we eat at all the time called Pure Foods,
Mhm.
and my wife pronounces it like pure, and I'm like, I'm sorry, are we going fishing? Pure? She's like, yeah, Pure Foods, and I'm like, pure. She's like, pure.
Mhm.
I'm like, pure, and it's a constant joke.
It's a constant joke because language is a constant joke.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It's a joke I'm quite good at. I make things sound wrong all of the time. Okay.
Okay.
So passive resolution.
Yes.
I want to come up with Pete's setback because I've kind of come up with this thing where we have dual protagonists, kind of.
Yeah,
dual heroes.
that started to emerge
That's
out of the
starting
last
to
episode.
develop this way now. But I want to set Pete back first because I kind of see this is kind of what I see, and Michael can give feedback and change it if he has a different or better idea. But the idea is Pete's setback is a success. He wins a major battle.
Okay.
He secures the artifact.
Oh, so that setback is also going to be a big Bob setback.
That's Bob's big setback as well, which leads into Bob's setback, which kind of gets defined at the same moment of time. But it's upon touching the artifact, he has a vision or something that gives him the connection that this artifact actually is a proof of ancestral linking, but something that's not a tangible proof where he can share it out with people. But he has the knowledge of it.
So
now.
he knows it for sure with unquestionable.
He knows it for sure, but I'm going to call him Evil Ed shows up. The boss man lands. The general's king shows up.
Okay.
To take command of his forces on this island. So the political leader we've been talking about before, who wants this artifact, has shown up as his people have gained possession of it. So now not only does Pete win the victory, which gets the knowledge of it in his hand and the artifact, but his boss shows up who's going to want the artifact. And so Pete is required to hand the artifact over as the servant of the king. So essentially the overlord shows up and he's going to want his due. And so Pete's going to gain him the thing he wants. But the problem is now he realizes that the path that he is on and his army is on, his people are on, is fatally flawed, but has no way of proving it. So that's a pretty huge setback for both of them. You know, it kind of looks pretty good at the climax where both people have the bright idea to end the war. A big person, or who's going to be the big person on both sides, or as you think, and then it just gets shattered and broken again. So, yay! This is how I mend things. I just keep breaking them until they're fixed. But you know that way it's like, and we've talked about this in the past. Whenever you're developing a story, whatever you want it to feel like, you have to break the tension that you're trying to build. So if it's comedy, you need non-comedic moments to make the comedy be funny and get funnier as it goes on. And if it's drama, you need to break the dramatic moments to make the drama build and be able to build stronger than it would if you just keep adding into it. So you need your setbacks to do that. And this is, I think, the big story setback, and it's probably around the same time in the story too. And it happens to be related because you have the related heroes now. You have the related setback at the same event. Ironically, the victory for the one side is the setback for the enemy as well as the hero. And I kind of like the idea that Pete's setback is winning.
That could be a good moment to bring them together.
That will force them on the path together, but Bob still has to get home. So he's maybe doesn't even, or maybe he's just gotten home and learned, because the easier one for Bob is to have the shamans turn on him. Like, okay, now we have to send assassins to kill him, which is, I think.
I mean, would they do that?
I don't. They could. That's pretty much and that could be like a herring as well too. Like they're going to try and stop him in some way. That's going to definitely happen story wise. And that's, I think, the general thing of what the general setback would be for the hero is he learns the people he's been trying to work for have turned against him because they don't want to turn the power over anyway. They still want their war, even though they're losing. But because they're losing, it might change their mind because the frogs aren't defeated, but they've had a massive setback. They've lost their power artifact. Luckily, no one knows how to really use it. So that's the one benefit Bob and Pete have.
Is Pete going to know how to use it too?
No. I mean, they're going to try and grab shamans to tell them how to use this great item of war. Of course, the shamans don't really remember it. They know the stories too, but they don't remember how to do it. So there will be a shaman added in here who, will be captured because they need someone to explain how to use this thing. Now, from there, we have to realize is what happens. So it's broken, and so what is the plan of victory?
Well, I mean, loving happy endings. I would love to see Bob's commitment to peace come out.
Mm-hmm.
I would love for him to be like, look, we can just make the resources and we don't have to fight anymore because we can just, and since we're cousins, you know what I mean? Like they could really push the peace, really push the peace button on that one.
So I think the main story resolution for both Bob and Pete, or how they win, is they. I
mean, the other option is they could lose. Like we could make this go really dark and go totally the other way.
I don't think so. That's too 1970s for me. But it doesn't have to be all cake and
sunshine, all sunshine and rainbows, as they say.
Yeah, that's the saying they actually use, but the one I used was so much worse that it needs to be remembered forever. But yeah, so they have to prove the relation, and that's not going to be easy. And there will be another quest where they have to come together to do this. Why Pete's trying to hold off Ed from finishing off the frogs. Bob has to find the proof of relation. They have to come together at a point to start this final plan. When Bob gets the evidence, he can present it forth. It will stop because of the thing. The soldiers won't continue to fight if it's their family. And this goes back to a world building element we need for the lizard people is they have to have this strong sense of extended family, clan, whatever you want to call it. And so proof of relation is key to peace. However, now we get to the story resolutions, right? So we know Bob goes, he finds this item. We haven't said what the scene is, but we know what it is he's going to go on another quest to get the evidence needed, which is going to luckily be, story related wise, probably on the same island that they're currently on. Maybe it was something else brought with them that has been lost and needs to be refound. But potentially he needs the spear to unlock the book of knowledge or something. So the spear, the Bident in its current form is needed to prove the truth. And so that is truth. So now what are the resolutions? So this is where it doesn't all have to be good and bad. I think Bob ends up being the hero in the sense where he proves it. He stops the war by using the Trident to unlock the knowledge of the relation, which stops the lizard warriors from going. So Bob has a good finish in that sense. Now the question is, one, does he live? Does it, in the stories, the person who wins the quest, becomes king or something. I think the interesting thing is his victory is his resolution is he becomes a farmer, or probably an important farmer, but he doesn't become like the great leader of his people. He goes back to farming.
Yeah, I see that happen. Wait. Are you're talking Pete?
No, Bob. Bob becomes a farmer.
Well, Bob was a farmer, so of course he's going to be a farmer.
What I'm saying is he's gone through the quest the way the stories always end out is if you win the quest and save the day, you become the king of the town.
You get a new job. Yeah.
You get a new job. And I say, no, he gets his victory and his best victory, which is he gets to become a farmer again.
How do you feel about Pete becoming a shaman?
Pete could become a shaman. My other thought is this could be a tragedy side too, where the only way to get the spear back in Pete's hand or in Bob's hand and
to put it through his chest first
is Pete has to rebel against Ed.
Makes sense.
And use some loyal troops to prevent the crushing defeat of the frogs to give Bob the time. But Pete might or might not survive that. And so we can choose here. Do we want a tragic ending for Pete? The heroic tragedy of I had to hold the Alamo so Bob could win.
I mean, that makes sense because Pete is still a best supporting character, even though he's still second fiddle.
He's still second fiddle in my book. He's no Bob.
So he's no Bob. But if we're gonna kill him,
he gets his way, but maybe he has to hold the Alamo.
Yeah, if he's going down, we have to make it a. Oh gosh, what is what does Theoden say at the end? At Helm's Deep, at the Battle of Helm's Deep, he's like, if this is going to be our end, let us make it not a glorious one, but he might say it's make it a glorious one, something like that. Yeah. So yeah,
but it's like don't wish for one more English person here with us to take any of our glory. He gets that moment. He gets that Henry V moment.
Is that what Henry V said?
Oh yeah, before the battle on St. Crispin's Day, he according to Shakespeare, who obviously just took it note for note, was essentially,
of course,
we're outnumbered like 10-1, and they're all heavy cavalry, and we're a bunch of, we're essentially a starved army at this point. But he's like, don't wish for one more person here from England to help us, because of how outnumbered we are, and the sureness of our loss, we will have the greater share of glory than ever before. If we win here on St. Crispin's Day, go watch the speech. I'm going to have to find the speech because that is a great speech. The Kenneth Branagh version is very good. It's the movie version.
Oh, Kenneth Branagh. Oh, he's so awesome.
Yeah, back before he lost his mind and divorced his lovely wife, Emma.
Why did they get divorced?
Well, I know he married a person he starred in with Frankenstein in, I believe, shortly thereafter. So I don't know if that was it or not, but
he was married to
Emma Thompson.
Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
Why? Just why?
Yeah. I can't imagine. But I love both of them still, though.
And me too. I think they're both fantastic.
Great actors, but a shame. But hey, hopefully it worked out the best for the both of them. But so I think we have the Alamo moment, the St. Crispin's Day speech kind of moment for Pete. So a glorious end for Pete, but one that gives the time for Bob to do what he needs to do to get the evidence. So evil Ed is thwarted at the end. So now there's a few things we do for evil Ed.
Evil Ed Lizard. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Evil Eddie Lizard.
Evil Eddie Lizard, yeah. That's he has a flag.
And a really funny stand-up show.
And a really funny stand-up show. Yeah, he goes on tour after his flag failed to win. But no, Evil Ed, we can have him pushed back off the island, but remember he can't return to where he came from because the resources are burned out. So maybe he kind of sails off in the other direction, into the sunset, but of the losing sort. Or we could have him, killed, for covering up, but that would be, I think, too simplistic. I think it's always good if the boogeyman is still around.
I think it would be interesting to see the people come together. Like, how do you like this idea? See the peoples come together in the end. Obviously, there's going to be butthurt feelings on both sides, but the people who want the war end up together as well. So you get evil you get Evil Ed teaming up with the shamans, and they,
or as I've listed here,
and
the Silly Shamans, which I had,
and they go into
off together,
and they go out into exile. Yeah.
Okay,
They're like, well,
I had a note in here of Silly Shamans.
Yeah.
Afterwards to talk about, but I like Exiled with Shamans, and they're together. So it's kind of like, yeah, sure, you're alive, and the boogeyman's still out there, but now they're forced to deal with each other, and they hate each other. But they now have to learn to work together too. Yeah, and maybe holds the Alamo and new shamans follow Pete. So there's a new group of shamans that rise up, but they are actually followers of Pete. So they take the Pete. They are the followers of Pete. The disciples of Pete are the
disciples of Pete.
Yeah. So we get this sort of shaman idea you want with Pete there as well.
Right. I would love to see like these two cultures meld. I don't know if that could. Well, you know what? That's got to happen, right? Because he's got.
They both have the sense of family now.
Well, right. And Bob is going to provide for both.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that tie, we can tie the cultures together.
And from this day forward, there will be this dual culture kind of going forward. So, no, I think that's a good end to the story.
Do we want to get into like, are they, because they come from the same ancestry, are they genetically compatible?
They don't have to be.
Well, because I know one of our
because if they get the point of being a new species.
Well, right, but I know one of our subtexts was gender, so we haven't touched on that yet.
Yeah, that's true. We've not really touched on that, but that could play out in the way certain things has to happen. Maybe Bob is no longer Bob. Maybe Bob has to swap genders. Ooh.
Maybe. After all, the item is switching purposes.
Bob becomes Berta and uses Trident or Bident to prove the link. Okay. So, to do it, he has to literally change who he is. Literally. And it's not a statement that women are better than men. It's just a statement that in this case, he needs to be a woman. But it's how it's part of the ritual, part of the changing of the item. But I don't think they are necessarily compatible because they're a new species, right? It's like the warblers on the east of the Himalayas can't reproduce with the warblers on the west of the Himalayas, but they can reproduce with all of the other warblers that are to the south of them or in the Himalayas.
I think it might need to be more extreme. You figure, unless previously we were talking that these creatures can change gender already.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible he's already done that throughout his life at some point. So I think he becomes either, non-binary or gender defiant.
Or gender.
He becomes something other. So for him to follow through on peace, he needs to give something of himself. He needs to sacrifice.
Non-binary.
So so
that's interesting. Yeah.
So he can no longer have kids.
A gender swap.
Exactly. Because they're already doing that, right? That's what I'm saying. It's like it's got to be a transformation.
Loses all gender.
Loses gender definition.
Okay. No, I like that. I think that is a little bit more modern day meaningful too, for the people who feel like they are non-binary. So yeah, and now, and this is for you. This is sort of like a frame outline for a campaign. Some of the things I would do if I was really fleshing it out, besides building like your locations and stuff like that, is, from a story standpoint for a campaign, is you need some side quests. There are going to be other characters who are involved who are going to help Bob and Pete along the way, and you're going to want character arcs for some of the more interesting ones. So they'd have their own sort of 3-act structure mixed without the main story one. And I also, there needs to be some random scenes that they're related to the story, but they're not necessarily tightly coupled to any of the plots. Maybe it's more information about a location or something like that. But random scenes, and I like to use these as pocket events when players go off task, when they go off script, and you kind of have a list. I don't like to do random encounters, but I have my pocket encounters that I can just kind of throw in there. Like, okay, I need a moment to figure out how to get, to either to change the story because of what the players just did that blew my mind, or because they're distracted by something shiny. I need something to distract them for a moment so I can recoup and figure out how to get them back on track. And ultimately, sometimes you might have like a tree plot structure if you're doing a narrative campaign. That's the safer way to build one. We built one more like a story 3-act structure. But I've always been kind of good at going, okay, I see this path changing now, and kind of adjusting the story to a different trajectory. But we're at this point, we're just going to do what we think the main story plot is. But it's good to have side quests, alternative endings, and then these random scenes that you can kind of throw in to give yourself a moment to adjust if the players really do something cool that you weren't expecting, or are so off track that you need to figure out how to get them back on track without just killing them with dragons, which is never a bad idea. Get a character log together too, like whatever system you're using, you would need stats for your characters, for your NPCs specifically. And then come up with what's the lore players know of. They're in this circumstance, they're probably going to be frogs, but not necessarily. So you probably want to know enough about the frogs, and from the frog perspective, what the frogs know at the beginning of the campaign, because the information will change as they learn it. But it's best to give players ahead of time sort of, here's some fact sheets about what you need to know about the world. So you don't have to do everything in story, so they can build their characters and have some understanding of the world when they start off.
And don't get too caught up in the tabletop aspect of what we're talking about here, because all this was in service of it being a short story or even a long story or even a novel. So all of this was an exercise in the creative process that you guys can absolutely use if you want to do it as a story, not a campaign.
Yep, it's a lot quicker to get to a long form story than a campaign if it's a long form campaign. And now the last thing here is the next season we're going to start getting the characters.
I was going to say this has dovetailed so well into the intro of season 3.
Yep. And so essentially we'll be going into characters more, and to do that we're going to really get a lot more depth into the actual cultures and stuff like that too. So that's where we're going to go in season 3, which we will start next time.
Coming soon,
season 3, the World Builder's Anvil. And now, Michael.
Yes.
You have a world building task?
World building task. Take time to think about resolution. So when you're going to write down a story, sometimes you get the concept of the world or the characters, maybe even the story arc, but consider the conclusion. One of the really useful ways of building a story is think about the end first and then work backwards. So like, if this is what I want as a grand ending, then, well, what do I need to support that ending? And then what do I need to get to that? And then what do I need to get to that? And you can work backwards. And now you have a skeletal structure, even an outline, just based on starting with the resolution.
Yeah. And I argue for most people, the more novice you are at any kind of problem solving or storytelling, is to always work backwards.
Yeah. Because if you start at the beginning, it is really easy to write yourself into a corner. Really easy.
Or sit there and go, I have no actual plot. I just have a series of things that happen. If you're an experienced storyteller, I kind of see like things down the road, which is why as I get further into it, the easier it becomes. But normally the best place to start is the conclusion and go, okay, if this is the conclusion, what do I need to happen to get there, to get these two races together to work together at the end? So I think it's an interesting thing. Now, for the real world task, learn to listen to people. Sometimes we hear what people are saying but we don't really listen to what they're saying. And sometimes it's more than what they're actually saying. It's piecing together a puzzle from what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people don't know what they're trying to get to. So this becomes very apparent when you're a parent, because you sit there and go, okay, I don't really know what's going on. My kid's upset and he can't speak English yet, or, you're really forced to hone the skill as a parent, and most humans are pretty good at it if they apply themselves, because you got to the age you are by doing this. But when you get busy, you stop listening to people, which means you don't talk. You hear what they say. You ask questions to get more information. It's just makes your life a bit easier.
Okay. We'll see you guys in season 3.
Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.gardul.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.